It was supposed to be a peaceful weekend, a break from the noise and chaos of city life. A few friends and I had planned a camping trip in the mountains, far away from the buzzing phones and constant rush. We set up camp near a quiet, crystal clear lake, surrounded by thick woods. It was the perfect spot, secluded, tranquil, and untouched. The first night was beautiful. We built a fire, told stories, and laughed under the starlit sky. But as the evening wore on, I started to feel uneasy. It was a strange sensation, one I couldn't put my finger on. The air felt heavier somehow, the crackling of the fire louder than usual. I kept scanning the tree line, but nothing was there. Still, something about the woods felt wrong. I shrugged it off, blaming it on my overactive imagination. After all, it was my first camping trip in years, and I was used to the constant motion of the city. I figured I'd just need some time to adjust. Around midnight, we all turned in, and I lay in my tent listening to the sounds of nature. But then I heard something. At first, it was faint, just a rustle of leaves in the distance, but it was different from the usual sounds of wildlife. It was rhythmic, like footsteps. I strained my ears, hoping it was just an animal, but as the sound grew closer, I felt my pulse quicken. And the footsteps weren't staggered like an animal's, but deliberate, paced. Someone or something was out there. I quietly unzipped my tent, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever it was. The campfire had burned low, casting long shadows over the trees. I couldn't see anything, but the feeling of being watched intensified. My friends were all asleep, oblivious to whatever was happening. Then I heard it. Closer now, the unmistakable sound of a twig snapping underfoot. I froze, heart racing. I wasn't alone. Suddenly I heard a voice, soft, almost a whisper, coming from the woods. "I see you." I stumbled back into my tent, my breath coming in the shallow gasps. My mind raced. Who was out there? Had someone else come to the camp, but no one had passed us on the way in, and there were no other camps nearby? The voice sounded too distant to be anyone from my group. It was as though it came from deep in the woods. I considered waking up my friends, but something told me not to. I don't know what it was, but I felt like if I spoke, I'd draw attention. The silence of the forest seemed to press against me, suffocating. I held my breath, listening. The footsteps stopped. For what felt like hours, there was nothing but silence. I dared not move, afraid that the slightest sound would give away my location. Then, just as I thought the danger had passed, I heard the voice again. Closer now. Much closer. "I'm right here." It wasn't a whisper anymore. It was clear. The voice was deep, low and chilling, like it was coming from the very ground beneath me. Panic surged through me. My mind screamed to run, to grab my things and flee, but my body was frozen. I couldn't move. The air around me felt thick, almost suffocating. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. A shadow, not far from my tent, just at the edge of the firelight. I wasn't imagining it. Something was out there. I stayed still, praying it wouldn't come any closer, but it did. I saw the silhouette of a figure, just standing there, watching. It was tall, unnaturally tall, its features indistinguishable in the dim light. Suddenly the fire flared up, casting a sudden burst of light across the camp. The figure vanished. I don't know how long I stayed there, paralyzed with fear. By dawn, the woods had gone eerily quiet, and the feeling of being watched never left, but nothing appeared. In the morning, I told my friends what had happened, but they brushed it off as nerves or imagination. Yet, when we packed up to leave, I noticed something odd. There were fresh footprints around our camp, deep impressions in the earth, and they were heading toward the lake, but they weren't ours. As we drove away, I glanced back at the woods one last time. The feeling lingered, and I couldn't shake the thought. Whatever was out there, it was still watching. To this day, I don't know what I encountered that night, but I'll never forget the voice. I see you, and I know it's still out there, somewhere in those woods.